Your tweet about Georgia not allowing a legal challenge for 2020 was fact-checked by Community Notes. Yes, I know. They said a court deadline was missed. Different case. Not Trump's election contest. They said fees were not paid on other cases.
Details.
Dropped by a plaintiff. Again, not Trump's election contest. I mean, what's amazing, and I'll talk about it on Sunday, how whoever was doing Twitter's Community Notes is about as ignorant as 90% of the populace is about the fact of the Georgia election contest. Most people don't even know it was ever brought.
This could be eerily close to insurrectionist talk, or what's Trump and the other 18 being indicted with? RICO law.
Most people don't know why it was never heard in court. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know the allegations that were in there. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know the substantive merit behind those allegations. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know that there was never a third-party audit done by anybody, anywhere, any place, any time.
But the media said that there was a signature verification. Robert, please address that allegation.
In the state of Georgia. The Republican Party, the institutional hacks, particularly Ratburger, had some of his buddies. This is referenced in the indictment, by the way. Their signature match check was to have a couple of Ratburger's buddies do it in secret.
I thought it was Ratfaceburger. It's Raffensburger. I think it has to be Ratfaceburger. Although Ratburgers might be what we're eating in the future, people. All right, sorry, hold on. Let's finish this up.
And only look at a small subsample. That doesn't count. They mentioned in the indictment that it was a criminal conspiracy for Mark Meadows and Donald Trump to even try to simply observe the signature match check-in process, even though the law entitles them to that.
Democracy dies in darkness, the Washington Post motto.
That's what they called the fraud. The fraud is what the state of Georgia was doing. It's unbelievable. But yeah, the Community Notes fact check was more than a little wrong. I assume, by the way, that was some Kemp person because I said the same thing in other posts and there was no fact check. It was only a fact check when I quote tweeted Kemp. So one of his people, me. They're full of it. They're liars and frauds.
I love Barnes. Obviously, I love Barnes. And then let me just see that. I'm going to share this tweet with everybody. My critique, by the way, of it is Community Notes. It's better than fact check. It's more community democratically driven. You get the input of people if they find it useful. That's funny, actually. Why don't I see the Community Notes? Either way, I can't see the Community Notes when I'm not logged in. Community Notes, it's not perfect. It's not the worst thing on earth. It's certainly a little bit better than AP Fact Check or PolitiFact or Snopes or whatever. But the problem with Community Notes is that, let me see if I can bring that one up, because the rubric under which that one was brought was interesting. Let me see here. Oh, well, I think maybe the Community Notes has been downvoted enough that it's no longer there. Anyway, when it was there, it said added context and then proceeded to add context, which might seem like relevant context to the politically ignorant, but to those who know, and Barnes knowing more than most, was not added context. It was actually, as I rated that Community Notes, argumentative and not on point. Added context really is just a way of arguing with a tweet that you don't like. Adding context, as far as Community Notes fact-checking goes, is not a fact check. I arguably should be permitted because it's adding context, is not correcting a falsehood. It is arguing with something that you might disagree with or that you might think needs additional context for people to better understand, then quote tweet it. Don't abuse of your authority as a Community Noteser to graffiti, and certainly not to add context, which is actually misleading, not clarifying or educating. All right. Now, oh, by the way, and also other news of the day, which I won't bring up, but Elon Musk apparently put out a tweet, which we'll see if he follows through with it based on the backlash, that they're going to do away with the block function because it's useless, and they're going to only allow blocking in DMs. It got some pushback, it got some blowback, it got some bad responses. Questionable whether or not it's even permissible for something that's on Question about whether or not they even have to allow it. I wonder if there's a legal reason for which they'd have to allow people to block people that they don't like. I'm not sure. But the idea that they would remove the block, I like the idea. I'm not sure that I would support the idea. People abuse of the block to prevent their audience from seeing the truth when it's abused. Other times, I think it's a useless feature because block someone who's a troll or, harasser, for lack of a better word. Oh yeah, that's going to do something. They're just going to go create another account, and then you're playing whack-a-mole with the blocks. But I could get behind. You don't get to block. It's a public forum. You want to come out and talk. If it doesn't break the rules, you don't just get to deprive that person from reaching your public square. But anyhow, rules of the game. We'll see if he follows through with it. Good afternoon, everybody. Look, if I randomly at some point during this stream, for no apparent reason, go, I was trying to look for a Thomas Sanders Vine where he said, I made a terrible mistake, and he's reaching out and he's parked too far from the drive-thru to get the food. I've made a terrible mistake. The day before yesterday, I was fishing and didn't know that I was standing in a red anthill. At least I didn't know for a little bit too long. Felt these like little bites and little stings on my ankle, and I thought it was just like the grass, rubbing up against my foot, until the bites got a little too burning to ignore. And my ankle got, destroyed by red ants. And then it turned into these little, what they call pustules. And the little pustules, they just say, hey, Viva, pop me, squeeze me. You don't want to look at this thing on your ankle. And then I Googled, should you or should you not pop the pustules that the red ants leave after they bite you? All sources on the internet said, no, do not do it. It can cause secondary infection. It's not good. It can leave scarring. It's like, okay, I don't care about those things. I'll keep it clean, but I got to do it. I've done it, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made. You realize why your body responds in the way it does, and it has those little protective barriers that keep the pustules in place. And when you squeeze the pustules, there's no longer something keeping the fluids in, and then it turns into a pussy mess, and it was so itchy. It's so itchy. Those of you who've been watching for a while, you know that I've had the shingles, and you know that I've had my bad experiences with poison ivy. It's not a regular itch. It's like, it's shingles. It's poison ivy-like. The skin gets all swollen. It's an itch that goes into the core of your bone. I couldn't sleep last night. I was wearing my wife's Oura ring to see how disturbed my sleep was. I was up for 2 hours trying to soak my foot in cold water, but for those of you who don't know, Florida water doesn't get cold. And so you could run the sink forever. It doesn't get cold. It puts some ice in it. Anyhow. Okay. Oh, no. I wasn't ignoring the fire ants. I just didn't know. I was like, I'm fishing. I'm fly fishing. I'm concentrating. Oh, they itch even if you don't pop them, Brian Dixon. True. But I have a comparative because I missed one on the backside of my leg. The one that I missed, though itchy, does not look like or itch like the ones that I did squeeze. Anyhow, now you know. Learn. What's the old expression? Sometimes your sole purpose in life is to serve as a warning to others. Don't pop them. So now, hold on. Oh, I've just been dousing my feet in rubbing alcohol periodically so that it just makes it better. All right, good afternoon. Everybody, you might notice right here, I got a gift at the post office today, 1509, on the 18th day of August, this 2023, Anno Domini, Year of the Lord. For those who don't know what Anno Domini stands for. Yeah, rub your feet with 70%. Dude, 91%. All right, okay, that's the intro, and now you know my woes. Oh, it's so damn itchy. And you scratch it. And you want to tear your flesh off your body. You feel it up into your everywhere. Let's see here. Does fire ants are as dangerous? I'm from Ireland. It burns so bad. Oh yeah, no. It's. And now you realize that the bite is not the painful part. It's the immunological systemic response afterwards that your body goes through. It be itchy like a serious stuff. I'm just trying to see here. We might have a secret guest coming. Okay, good afternoon. So today, what do we have? Wasn't going to go live Friday. You know, I was with Eric Hunley and the other law posse on Hunley's channel earlier today. But then, like, as we're talking, I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna go on Richard Surrett tonight. Richard Surrett, Saga 960 or Saga 690. For those of you who don't know, Canada is hatching a post-Trump election plan. If Trump gets elected and America descends further into what Justin Trudeau has the balls to refer to as authoritarianism, if America falls further down the path of authoritarianism by democratically electing Donald Trump, then Canada, who's judging the authoritarianism of another country, Canada, the one that froze bank accounts, suspended civil rights and liberties despite Justin Trudeau saying we're not going to do that, violently beat the living piss out of veterans. Yeah, that hypocrite, maple syrup. He's saying if America democratically elects Donald Trump, despite all efforts to prevent that from happening, and it takes the democratic turn towards authoritarianism as determined by the authoritarian himself, Justin Trudeau, they've got a plan. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Vivek because some interesting things about Vivek. I did not know about his lawsuit against the WEF, which apparently he recently settled on August 1st, and the apology that the WEF issued for having done with Vivek what they seemingly do with a lot of other people who don't oppose it as much as Vivek does. Let me just get some backdrops here to see what the other stories of the day is. There's never a dull day. Oh yeah, Joe Biden. Apparently he's got a pseudonym, Robert. Oh, his name. What is it? Robert L. Peters. Joe Biden, in correspondence about his son's business dealings, was using the pseudonym Robert L. Peters, which kind of makes a little more sense of Hunter Biden's nickname for Joe Biden, Pedo Pete. We'll get there in a second. And then we're going to just talk about the Trump madness. Chris Christie. Holy shit. It's very easy to make fun of Chris Christie for certain things. It's not my style, although now I feel bad that I said you're not an elephant to Chris Christie because the elephant is the Republican animal. And had it been a Democrat, I would have said you're not an ass. And I didn't mean any double entendre by that, which some people might think, but Chris Christie's an idiot. An idiot. An idiot invoking and appealing to the same leftist arguments that the left is invoking and appealing to in order to discredit Trump, try to get him off the ballot. We're going to talk about that. But okay, look, so we'll do the first thing. By the way, if you're new to the channel, there's a super chat. Meta Boss says, will this inability to block affect Mark Gerritsen? You can't comment on his post unless you are somehow someone he follows. Politicians shouldn't get this. Well, first of all, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think Elon's going to do it. I don't think he's going to do it. So that's my bet. Even though some people are going to say he's stubborn and he's going to make the decision, even if it's unpopular, I don't think he's going to follow through with it. Gerritsen hasn't blocked me yet, but I think it's because Mark Gerritsen is a Canadian member of parliament who has a Ukrainian flag in his Twitter official description before the Canadian flag. He's an elected member of parliament. So I don't know. And now, disclaimers, by the way, we're simultaneously streaming, if you're new to the channel, on YouTube, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We will end here in about 10, 12 minutes after we do a first story and go over to Rumble. The link to Rumble is in the pinned comment, and I'll share the link. We then go to Rumble, we do our stream, and then we end on Rumble, and we go to vivabarneslaw.locals.com for a little after party where we take some tips, some comments, and that's it. That's the order of the day. For those of you who don't know also, YouTube takes 30% of these things called Super Chats. Rumble has an equivalent called Rumble Rants. And Rumble ordinarily takes 20% of that, but they don't do that for the rest of this year. It all goes to the creator. Best way to support, go to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. $7 a month, $70 a year, although some people actually support with more than that. Best community on earth. Everyone's above average. And if I also seem to be even more edgier than normal, it's because I drank a Celsius, one of those energy drinks, and it's got a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Caffeine in it. All right, people, let's go to the top of this article. Look at this. Canada has, quote, game plan if U.S. takes far right authoritarian shift, Jolie says. Now, if this were the CBC, I would be calling them out by saying you cannot just repeat what the elites, what the police are saying without pretending that you're somehow affirming it. I'm going to go now. At least they are quoting her, because I think it's a prejudicial statement for Melanie Jolie, to refer to what would happen if democracy in America results in Trump getting elected. It would be far right, because now apparently freedom is far right. Don't touch my body is far right. Anti-curfew is far right. Protest sometimes is far right, sometimes is totally justifiable. What's the game plan? And it's crazy. Canada is watching next year's presidential elections closely, says Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Jolie. For those of you who don't know, jolie in French means pretty, not a joke. Foreign Affairs, okay. Ottawa. And we're going to see, like, I think National Post is pulling some crap in this article based on their choice of pictures of Trump. Ottawa. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Jolie has been considering a, quote, game plan for how it would respond if the United States takes a far-right authoritarian shift in next year's presidential elections. Imagine this. The non-authoritarian regime is planning how they're going to respond to the democratic elections of another country. We are certainly working on scenarios. I mean, it's crazy. I'm going to be talking about this with Richard Surrett this afternoon. 528 Saga 960 or Saga 690, I forget what it is. Jolie added that Ottawa's close political and economic ties to the U.S. means that, quote, we must certainly prepare several scenarios. What in the bloody hell are you talking about, Melanie Jolie? What are you talking about? Oh, America's going to elect Donald Trump. It seems that some people are very scared of this. And that's going to represent what? A stronger economy in America, like everyone saw 2016 to 2020, excluding the last year of 2020? Oh. She suggested Canada has a game plan in mind, but wouldn't go into details. In general, there is our game plan, precisely to be able to manage what could be a rather difficult situation. Yeah, democracy is always a difficult situation. It's a difficult situation when democracy does not produce the results that we want. And why on earth it's anyone's business in Canada who gets elected in the U.S. I will work with my colleagues and with mayors, the provincial premiers, with my business community, with the business community, with the unions, with everyone in the country, so that we are ready regardless of the election outcome. Jolie drew an analogy to her government's experience working with the administration of former U.S. President Donald Trump, which sought to limit long-established trade in crucial sectors. Oh, you mean like when Joe Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline first day in office? Trump is again running for president, yada, 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 and has promised retribution against his opponents. You gotta love the editorializing here. Trump is again running for the Republican nomination. This is Canadian news, by the way. And National Post is the better of the Canadian news. Trump is again running for the Republican nomination in next November's election, and has promised, notice promised is not in quotes, but retribution is, against his opponents and civil servants. It's amazing. They are holding against him his purported promise for retribution, while ignoring the actual real-time retribution against Donald Trump and everyone and anyone that had anything to do with him by the Biden Department of Justice in real time. No, forget the real-time injustice. Let's focus on the fomented, fabricated future potential retribution. U.S. Embassy declined comment. University of Ottawa national security professor Thomas Junot said many Canadians might find it far-fetched to talk about Washington falling drastically out of step with Canada. How about Canada falling out of step with Washington? You know, like locking down people, freezing bank accounts, training Chinese military on Canadian soil, spying on Canadian citizens, using the COVID pandemic as an excuse to test out propaganda. How about if Washington might say Canada might be the one who has fallen to authoritarian measures, and they're the ones who have fallen out of line with a free democracy, which I'm no longer certain even the U.S. is. There's been an extreme rise in global volatility in recent years, he said. Okay, whatever the hell that means. Okay, whatever. Junot said Canada could face the prospect of political refugees, economic protectionism in one of the largest trading relationships in the world, and a shock to Ottawa's reliance on the U.S. for intelligence sharing and scientific cooperation. Those factors don't include missile defense and military protection. Can you imagine? They are thinking there's going to be political refugees of Americans coming to the States. I mean, I guess they mean in terms of Trump imposing travel bans or immigration bans or anti-immigration policy, which would drive illegal immigrants in America to Canada, as has been the case for a little while. It'd be good for Canada. They want to double the Canadian population by the end of the century. That's a good way to do it. Open up your borders to political refugees, and so that Canada and Canadians don't have a say in saying, would you mind turning off that tap a little bit? If an increasingly authoritarian U.S. is increasingly unilateral and dismisses of traditional alliances like NATO or arrangements like NORAD, how does that damage our security? Juno asks, how does training Chinese soldiers for wintertime combat on Canadian soil damage American security, compromise American security? How does Chinese Communist Party infiltration into the Canadian political landscape via donations to the Trudeau Foundation, via donations to support Canada, how does that impact American national security? Another question would be American intervention in Canadian democratic process. Already, far-right politicians in the U.S. voiced support for the freedom protests in 2022. Do you understand what they're doing right now? Already, far-right politicians in the U.S. voiced support for the Freedom Convoy protests in 2022. And already here, you've got Canadians voicing support for Biden or condemnation for a potential Trump win in America. They are doing what they are accusing their adversaries of doing: interfering in foreign politics. At the time, Texas Governor Ken Paxton, Florida Ron DeSantis, who's now running against Trump, both fought against attempts to prevent Americans from donating to convoy protesters. Hold on one second. At the time, DeSantis and Kemp both fought against attempts to prevent Americans from donating to convoy protesters. Of course. Oh, I'm sorry. Who's the authoritarian? You're trying to prevent people from donating money to federally incorporated not-for-profits that they decide to support? And Trump's the authoritarian? December 2021, Liberals promised to create a Canadian Centre for Global Democracy to shore up like-minded countries in Asia. NDP Foreign Affairs Heather McPherson said it's only logical that Ottawa plan for an aggressive Washington. Of course. Okay, it goes on. How much does this go on for? Okay. The withdrawal from the world stage, initiated under Obama and amplified under Trump, let's just ignore the withdrawal from Afghanistan, has proven disastrous as it created a vacuum quickly filled by the rival powers and opened a field of expansion for Russia. Oh my goodness. That's the latest coming out of Canada, people. They're planning for what might happen if authoritarianism is on the rise via democratic elections in the States. They are offended by Americans, far-right politicians interfering, voicing support for Canadian issues, while Canadians voice support and opposition for the democratic process in a foreign country. Accuse your enemies of doing what you are doing so as to create confusion. It's actually not Saul Alinsky rules for radicals. It's actually Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's Nazi minister of propaganda, who said, accuse your enemies of doing what you are doing. Oh, let me see. Before we go, we'll see if there's anything else on the Canadian side before we head over to Rumble for the real party, because it's going to get super, super interesting. We're going to start with Chris Christie. Very, very bad, man. Let me see here. Just make sure that I have nothing left for Canadian stuff. No. We got one more. We're going to do it here, people. We're going to do it here. Speaking of, Canadian politicians are a bunch of idiots. Oh, I wanted to do this article yesterday, and I forgot to do it, so I'm just going to go do it today. Forgot to do this. Yesterday I did more Canadians are being killed by the government than ever before. Quebec now, over 7% of death in the province administered via lethal injection under Quebec's liberal implementation of euthanasia. But don't worry, only 0.5% of them didn't follow the protocol. I need everybody to appreciate this. I said it yesterday. I won't go too far into it again today. Quebec now has confirmed that over 7% of all death in the province results from euthanasia, medical assistance in dying, lethal injection. It's the top third cause of death in Canada, state-assisted suicide. The article noted that there were some 0.4% of the cases where protocol for euthanasia wasn't followed, in that the individuals were not terminally ill. To which I just tweeted out to Supreme Leader, Sunset Thief, Tyrant François Legault, do you know what it means when protocol for euthanasia has not been followed? It means it's murder. Like, it's not hyperbolic. It's not an exaggeration. Oh yeah, we killed somebody without following the medical assistance in dying protocol in the province. They weren't terminally ill, and we didn't follow the rules to make sure that the state-sanctioned killing is euthanasia and not murder. The government of Quebec only murdered 14 or 15 people in 2022. Nothing to see here. Cause of death, third cause of death in the province, state-sanctioned killing, euthanasia. So when it's not, when the country's not killing its citizens in record numbers, it's baffled as to why they're dying in record numbers. I'll give you all the article here, people. I don't know who's seen this. Here, let me just give you the link so you can go, share it. Oh, now I just lost. There's the link right here. Okay. More people than expected are dying in Canada in 2023 for reasons that are not yet clear. And by the way, just so nobody calls me a whacked out, double-vaxxed anti-vaxxer, I am not solely attributing it to any one glaringly obvious possibility. I have no doubt it's an aggregate accumulation of failed, flawed government policy, which is even worse. At least if it resulted from one bad decision, you could at least say, okay, we only made one mistake. Okay, so I am not saying it results solely and exclusively from the jab with all of what we now know about the jab. It results from the jab. It results from lockdowns. It results from suicides. It results from drug overdoses. It results from people who didn't go get their cancer screenings and are now fighting aggressive cancers that went undiagnosed. It's resulting from alcoholism. It's resulting from depression, stress, all things that cause people to die. So yeah, you're right. It's not only one act of stupidity and incompetence from the government. It's a cumulative, aggregate culmination of stupidity, which some people might now no longer attribute to stupidity, but might actually attribute to malice. Population's dying, record numbers, we don't know why. We're killing them, record numbers, sign of progress. Oh, look at that. The Canadian population's not growing enough. Let's just double the population via open borders immigration. Geez, it's almost like a plan. Sorry, I got carried away there. Did I talk about this week? Whatever. COVID-19 cases, and you got to understand, it's amazing. Case numbers are down, COVID deaths are down. But okay, that's fine. By a different measure, one that is trickier to interpret, more people than expected are dying in Canada for reasons that are not yet clear. Excess mortality, also known as why are more people dying in 2023, I think the peak, by the way, was in 2022. So it was in 2022. I think it's in here. We don't know why more people are dying. Excess dipped in January, February, but latest 2023 figures indicate it's about 15 to 20% higher than what it was in 2020 and 2021. I think I did talk about this week. It's considerably lower than in 2022, which, and I'm quoting, was a horrific, really, really bad year in Canada, but it's still higher than the first few years of the pandemic. Why would 2022 have been a really, really horrific bad year in Canada when it's after the pandemic has, apparently, purportedly ought to have taken its most devastating toll? It's roughly a year after a certain program was implemented with vigor, coerced onto a Canadian population. It's very interesting why the worst year for excess deaths would be 2 years into the pandemic and about 1 year after the rollout of the coerced, mandated jibby jab. Excess mortality says about the current state of the pandemic is uncertain, in part because of a slow patchwork system for reporting the deaths. Yet it shouldn't be ignored, says Dr. Moriarty. We absolutely need to know why we have historically high levels of death. We need to know why. Climate change? Supplements? Video games. It's video games? It's no. It's eggs. It's eggs. It's the wildfires. It's what else could it be? Anything else, eh? Anything else. All right, that's it. That's it. I thought I wanted to talk about this yesterday, but the more I talk about it, I think I might have already covered it. Here, everybody, the link is there to that article. Share it around, blast it around. I'm an idiot. I didn't double check that we were live everywhere else, but it looks like we are. Phew. And we're live on Rumble as well. All right, here is the link to Rumble. Let me just go all caps. I'm going to put in a typo. Get ready to Rumble. And come on over to Rumble, the free speech platform that I love. And what else was I just about to say? Also, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Sunday night stream is going to be amazing. Hold on one second. Oh, yeah. Okay, get that side there. Nice. That's better. All right. Oh, it's so bloody itchy. Come on over to Rumble. I'm going to end this on YouTube right now. Remove 3, 2, 1. VivaBarnesLaw.com.